My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has been unfolding behind closed doors, something your eyes could not see and your ears were never meant to hear until now. While you were trying to understand the silence, while you were wondering why the energy around your connection suddenly felt different, your soulmate's family gathered together in a private meeting, and your name became the center of a conversation that lasted far longer than anyone expected. They spoke about your heart, your past, your influence, and the future you might share with the person who has been carrying your memory in silence. But the most surprising part was not that the meeting happened. The most surprising part was the final decision they reached after every secret was placed on the table. Pause here. Do not rush away from this message, because the truth did not begin in that room. It began days earlier, when someone in your soulmate's family noticed a change in them. They were quieter during conversations. They stared into the distance when your name was almost mentioned. They tried to smile through ordinary moments, but there was a heaviness behind their eyes that could not be hidden. Their family thought they were tired. They thought it was stress, pressure, or uncertainty about the future. But one person understood that this was not ordinary sadness. This was the expression of someone trying to protect a love they could no longer deny. Your soulmate had been carrying two worlds inside them. In one world, they imagined choosing you fully, speaking honestly, and stepping toward the life their heart had already accepted. In the other world, they feared disappointing the people who raised them, supported them, and expected them to follow a different path. For a long time, they tried to balance both worlds. They told themselves they could wait. They believed silence would protect everyone. But silence began to create more tension than truth ever could. Their family sensed that something important was being hidden, and eventually, one question changed everything. It happened during an ordinary conversation. Someone asked your soulmate, "Are you truly happy with the direction your life is taking?" The room became silent. It was not a dramatic question, but it touched the exact place your soulmate had been avoiding. They looked down. Their hands became still. They tried to answer quickly, but the words would not come. In that pause, their family saw the truth before it was spoken. Your soulmate was not confused about what they wanted. They were afraid of what choosing it might require. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you in the final moments of this revelation. Your soulmate did not tell them everything that day, but they said enough. They admitted there was someone who had changed the way they saw love. Someone who made them feel understood without forcing them to explain every hidden wound. Someone whose presence remained powerful even during distance. They did not immediately say your name, but the family already knew. They had heard pieces of your story before. They had noticed how your soulmate's expression changed whenever a certain memory surfaced. They had watched them defend you without realizing they were doing it. That was when the secret meeting was planned. It was not announced to your soulmate. It was not meant to be cruel or controlling. The family believed they needed to understand the situation before making any decision that could affect everyone. So they gathered when your soulmate was not there. A parent, an older relative, a sibling, and one unexpected person sat together in a room where your name had rarely been spoken openly. At first, the atmosphere was cautious. No one wanted to say too much. No one knew who supported the connection and who feared it. But the moment the conversation began, emotions that had been hidden for months started rising to the surface. One person spoke first. They said they were worried that your soulmate was becoming too emotionally attached to a future that had not yet been secured. They questioned whether the connection was practical. They wondered if distance, timing, past misunderstandings, or family expectations would eventually create pain. Their words were not filled with hatred, but with fear. They feared seeing your soulmate hurt. They feared losing influence over the choices they had always helped guide. And beneath all those concerns was a deeper fear they did not want to admit. They sensed that your soulmate loved you enough to change their entire life. Another relative disagreed. They had been quietly observing your soulmate for longer than anyone knew. They remembered how lost your soulmate seemed before your connection became meaningful. They remembered the emotional walls, the lack of excitement, the way your soulmate moved through life as though they were fulfilling obligations instead of following purpose. This person said something that changed the tone of the meeting. They said, "Whatever this connection is, it has awakened something in them that we could never reach." The room fell silent again. Do not skip this part, because what happened next revealed why the meeting became far more serious than anyone expected. The unexpected person in the room had information no one else possessed. They had spoken privately with your soulmate weeks earlier. During that conversation, your soulmate had confessed that they were not afraid of loving you. They were afraid of failing you. They admitted that every delay, every mixed signal, and every moment of distance had not come from a lack of feeling. It came from the pressure of trying to become someone strong enough to stand beside you without bringing confusion into your life. Your soulmate had said, "I do not want to return with empty promises. I want to return when I can offer something real." Those words were repeated during the secret meeting, and suddenly the family could no longer dismiss the connection as temporary emotion. They understood that your soulmate was not chasing an illusion. They were preparing for a decision. The family began asking deeper questions. How long had these feelings existed? Why had your soulmate remained emotionally loyal even during silence? Why did every attempt to move forward in another direction eventually fail? Why did your name continue returning to conversations, dreams, memories, and private prayers? The answer was uncomfortable for some of them. Your soulmate's heart had already chosen before the family ever gathered to discuss it. My child, heaven has seen the nights when you wondered whether you mattered to this person. You questioned whether the silence meant you had been forgotten. You replayed moments, searching for signs you might have imagined. But what you could not see was that your absence created conversations in places you had never entered. Your quiet influence reached a family table. Your kindness was remembered through stories your soulmate once shared. Your strength was discussed by people who had never fully understood you. Even the moments you considered small had become evidence of your character. Someone in the meeting remembered a time when your soulmate had been emotionally exhausted, and you offered support without demanding anything in return. Another person had heard how you encouraged your soulmate during a difficult season. Someone else knew that you had remained respectful even when the situation was unclear. Piece by piece, an image of you began forming in the room. Not the image created by fear, assumptions, or incomplete stories, but the image revealed through the way your soulmate had changed because of knowing you. Still, not everyone was convinced. One family member raised a concern that had never been spoken openly. They believed your soulmate might be idealizing you because the connection had faced obstacles. They wondered whether the mystery had made the feeling stronger than reality. They said that longing can sometimes make people hold on to a person more tightly than they should. For a moment, the conversation moved against you. Questions became sharper. Doubts multiplied. The family began examining every detail they knew. But then the sibling who had remained quiet finally spoke. They said they had once asked your soulmate to imagine a life in which you never returned. They expected your soulmate to say they would eventually move on. Instead, your soulmate had become completely still and answered, "I could continue living, but something inside me would always know I walked away from the person who understood me most." That sentence changed the room. The family realized this was not about obsession, fantasy, or temporary excitement. It was about recognition. Your soulmate recognized something in you that felt rare, steady, and deeply connected to their becoming. They did not see you as an escape from life. They saw you as someone who challenged them to become more honest within it. Stay with me, because the meeting did not end there. A greater revelation was still waiting, and it came from the oldest person in the room. Until that moment, this person had said almost nothing. They listened to every fear, every defense, and every hidden confession. They were known for being careful, traditional, and difficult to persuade. Everyone assumed they would oppose the connection. Even those who supported you prepared themselves for resistance. But this elder asked one simple question: when was the last time you saw them become this serious about becoming a better person? No one answered. The elder continued. They reminded the family that your soulmate had begun making changes quietly. They had become more responsible. They were thinking further into the future. They were confronting patterns they once avoided. They had started questioning decisions they used to accept without reflection. The family had noticed these changes but had not connected them to you. Now they understood that your presence had not distracted your soulmate from their path. It had forced them to examine whether they were truly walking it. The elder then revealed something no one expected. Your soulmate had approached them privately some time ago. They had asked for guidance without naming you directly. They had said, "How do you know when a person is meant to be part of your future, even when the timing is difficult?" The elder had answered, "Do not look only at how strongly you feel. Look at who you become when you carry that love." Your soulmate had gone silent after hearing that. Now, in the secret meeting, the elder said, "I have watched who they are becoming. That matters more than our fear." The emotional balance in the room shifted. Those who had been uncertain began listening differently. What began as an investigation into whether you were right for your soulmate slowly became an examination of whether the family's fear was preventing them from seeing something meaningful. One person admitted they had judged you based on incomplete information. Another confessed they were afraid that if your soulmate chose you, family traditions might change. Someone else acknowledged that they had been protecting an image of the future instead of paying attention to the person standing in front of them. But the strongest opposition had not yet spoken fully. This person believed your soulmate should choose someone more familiar, someone easier to understand, someone whose presence would not require difficult conversations or emotional courage. They argued that love should bring stability, not uncertainty. They said the connection had already created too much waiting, too many questions, and too much emotional intensity. Then something remarkable happened. The elder looked directly at them and said, "Sometimes the uncertainty does not come from the person. Sometimes it comes from everyone standing in the way of the truth." No one moved. That sentence exposed what had been hidden beneath the entire meeting. The family had assumed the connection itself was complicated. But perhaps the greatest complication had been the pressure surrounding it. Your soulmate had not been uncertain about you. They had been uncertain about whether they would be allowed to choose you without losing the approval of the people they loved. My child, this is where the spiritual meaning becomes deeper. There are moments when heaven allows a hidden conversation to take place, not because your worth needs to be debated, but because the hearts around your soulmate need to be revealed. Every person in that room had to confront what they were truly protecting. Some were protecting your soulmate. Some were protecting tradition. Some were protecting control. Some were protecting themselves from change. And one person was protecting a secret. Do not skip now. The secret was not about betrayal. It was not something dark or harmful. It was something your soulmate had done quietly that proved how serious this connection had become. One family member knew that your soulmate had already begun preparing for a future in which you would be included. They had started setting aside money. They had researched a place connected to your dreams. They had asked questions about how to rebuild trust after a long period of silence. They had even written down the words they wanted to say when the right moment finally arrived. The family member brought a folded page into the meeting. They did not read every word, but they shared one line your soulmate had written: "I do not want to ask them to believe me until my actions are strong enough to carry the truth." The room changed completely. Those who thought your soulmate was acting impulsively now understood they had been preparing carefully. Those who believed you were only a passing chapter realized your soulmate had been thinking in years, not moments. The meeting was no longer about whether the feelings were real. It was about what the family would do now that they could no longer deny them. A final discussion began. Every person was asked to speak honestly. One wanted more time. Another wanted your soulmate to be questioned directly. Someone believed the family should stay out of the decision entirely. The sibling who supported you said, "They have spent enough time living for everyone else. Perhaps we should finally allow them to live truthfully." The elder agreed, but added that one final condition had to be met. This condition was not meant to separate you. It was meant to reveal whether your soulmate was ready to stand behind their choice without hiding. The family decided they would not approach you, test you, or place pressure on you. Instead, they would speak directly to your soulmate and ask them one question: are you willing to choose this connection openly, even if the path requires patience, honesty, and change? The answer to that question would determine the family's final decision. But here is what they did not know. Your soulmate had already made a decision before the meeting ever began. On the same evening, while the family was still speaking behind closed doors, your soulmate was somewhere else holding an object connected to you. Perhaps it was a photograph, an old message, a gift, or a memory they had never been able to release. They had reached a point where silence no longer felt safe. They were tired of pretending distance had weakened what it had actually deepened. They whispered your name. And in that moment, they made a promise to themselves. No matter what the family said, they would stop allowing fear to speak louder than truth. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next morning, your soulmate returned home and immediately sensed that a conversation had taken place. The room felt different. People avoided eye contact. The elder asked them to sit down. Your soulmate looked from one face to another, realizing that the secret they had protected was no longer hidden. Then the elder placed the folded page on the table. Your soulmate recognized it instantly. Their face changed. They understood that the family had seen the words meant only for the future. They expected criticism. They prepared themselves to defend you. They believed the meeting had ended with a decision against the connection. But the elder leaned forward and said, "We know who this is about." Your soulmate did not deny it. They said your name clearly. For the first time, they did not soften it, hide it, or pretend the connection meant less than it did. They spoke about your character. They spoke about the mistakes they had made. They admitted they had allowed fear and delay to create confusion. They said they did not expect the family to understand everything, but they could no longer build a life based on everyone else's comfort. Their voice became emotional, but it did not become weak. They said, "I am not asking you to choose this person for me. I am asking you to respect that my heart has not reached this decision carelessly." The family listened. The person who had opposed you most strongly asked, "And what happens if they no longer want you?" That question struck your soulmate deeply. For several seconds, they could not answer. Then they said, "Then I will respect their choice. But I will still tell them the truth. They deserve to know that my silence was never the absence of love." The elder closed their eyes for a moment, as though confirming something within themselves. Then they announced that the family had reached a final decision. "My child, this is the moment everything had been building toward." The meeting, the hidden page, the fears, the arguments, and the confession had all led to one sentence. Your soulmate held their breath. One family member began crying quietly. Another looked away. The person who had resisted the connection remained completely still. The elder said, "We will not stand in the way anymore." Your soulmate could not speak. But that was not the full decision. The elder continued, "If this person has truly helped you become more honest, more responsible, and more alive, then we want to meet them. Not to judge them. Not to test them. We want to understand the person you have been protecting in your heart." Your soulmate lowered their head as emotion overwhelmed them. For months, they had feared the family would force them to choose between love and belonging. Instead, the family had chosen to open a door. Yet one final surprise remained. The relative who had opposed you stood up and left the room without saying a word. Everyone assumed they were angry. The hopeful atmosphere became uncertain again. Your soulmate wondered whether the decision would create division in the family. Minutes later, that relative returned holding something no one expected. It was an envelope. They placed it in front of your soulmate and said, "Before you contact them, there is something you need to know. This arrived days ago, and I did not show it to anyone because I was afraid of what it might mean." Your soulmate stared at the envelope. Their name was written on the front. But the handwriting was not unfamiliar. They had seen it before. It belonged to someone connected to your past, someone who knew more about your story than your soulmate's family ever imagined. Inside was a message that could change how your soulmate understood everything that had happened between you. Your soulmate reached for the envelope, but the relative stopped their hand and whispered, "Once you read this, you may never look at the silence between you the same way again."